everyone, welcome back to Educator Diaries. I'm Maria.
And I'm Chantel.
Today we have episode 15, Separation Anxiety in Childcare, giving your child a positive experience in starting childcare or preschool.
Yeah, right. So we've got a lot of parents out there at the moment that are probably experiencing this for the first time, or even the second or third time. Sometimes, it could have even been a bit of a break in between childcare. But like our previous episode talked about finding the right childcare. So today I thought we'd go through some things on once your child's you found that centre and they're about to start. So they've either maybe starting the last few weeks or, sometimes a lot of parents like to start their children once school goes back and
yes,
that.
Right.
So I thought we'd have some handy hints and tips on getting you through those first few weeks or months in childcare. So
initially, like we said, the separation, like it may be your first child, but every child's different,
That's right,
as such. And you could have moved and you've all gone interstate and starting a new childcare centre.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's a new thing for you and for your child. So
so just first thing though, a lot of parents sometimes don't realise that I've had in the past with my centre is that you really need to sort out your CCS, so your childcare subsidy, your Centrelink thing, because that can actually take 6 weeks to be approved.
Oh, wow.
So what happens then if you start and it's not approved, then most centres will make you pay full fees.
Oh, wow.
Until that subsidy comes through, and then they'll backdate it, because as long as you've applied for the subsidy before they actually start, the government will then backdate. Backdate it. So
it's a lot of money if you 3 or 4 days a week it's preschool and you've got to outlay that money.
That's right. And don't forget, there's a lot of childcare centres that will charge a bond on top of that as well.
Right.
So you almost need to have that bond
it's like
ready to go.
Like an enrolment fee as such, or
so some will have an enrolment fee as well.
On top of that?
So you'll have an enrolment fee, which may be a non-refundable fee. Then you'll have a bond. So generally, it's full fees for 2 weeks. So if your child goes 2 days a week and the full fee is $100, then if they ask for a 2-week enrolment bond, then you're up for $400, and then generally they'll hold that until you leave, until you give notice to leave.
Right,
and that, so therefore, number one, it covers them for any outstanding fees, if you get behind in your fees or, what have you.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind, some centres, you might start off at 2 days a week. If you increase your child's days, then some centres will also ask you to increase the bond and that. And then as the fees go up, the bond can also change. Yeah.
Also, exactly, that's right. So, but also keeping in mind, I think a lot of people forget that, the fine print, the fine print that says, giving notice, which is what did you have, 2 weeks notice?
Yeah, we had 2 weeks. I've had children that have wanting to come to our centre and like they had their spot ready to go and they're like, oh, the other centre has told me 4 weeks and that 4 weeks notice.
Right.
So there are, that's something that you can probably find out first as well, because you know what, some children may not settle into the centre as well, so you need to sort of kind of understand how that's going to work. And if your child, we're skipping ahead a little bit here, but if your child doesn't like it, and you've got to give those 2 weeks notice, you also have to be mindful that you have to actually attend on their last day, because if you don't attend on whatever their last day is, the childcare subsidy will not cover you, and therefore you'll be up for full fees for those days as well. So for instance, if I start childcare this week and my child loves it, we go Monday, Tuesday, then the following week they don't like it so much, we go Monday, maybe miss Tuesday, following week we might go on the Monday, and then they're not coming back. Well, that Tuesday, even for that week and the 2 weeks notice, will be at full fees because you haven't. Does that make sense? You've got to give notice. So just keep that in mind. Also, make sure you'll need your MyGov account and a customer reference number. So how the government assistance works is that you provide your customer reference number, or whoever has applied for the childcare subsidy, the adult in the house, and the child's customer reference number, and then it's generally the date of births, and then the childcare centres will have a program that they put all that information into, and it directly links up with Family Assistance and or Services Australia, whatever they're calling themselves at the moment. And then once that those fees are approved, then that will start coming off your off your weekly fee, and you just have to then pay the gap. So
Okay.
yeah, that's probably one of the big things that
The
parents
initial
have to
things to get that all done. And
Yeah.
I suppose all the enrolment forms too. How is that? Is it just the child information pack that you would normally have to give a whole lot of information about the child and their interests?
Yeah,
and all
so
that?
generally a lot of centres will, most centres now, a lot of them have enrolment forms that are online. So,
Right,
they'll
okay.
send you a link, or there are some that will still use a paper version.
right.
So in that, just be mindful that, if there are any separation or legal papers, then you'll have to supply that to the childcare centre as well. Also, immunisation. Childcare centres are not allowed to take children that are not immunised or fully immunised and have their immunisation up to date. Yes, nope. What are you going to say?
I was about to say, like we could do it at the time when they would have to pay full fee and not get government assistance.
Yes, no, even now.
So now, whether you want to pay the full fee or not.
No, well, I remember looking into that for a family, and unless it's changed in the last, 12 months or so, but the last thing was that no, children who are not immunised. Yep.
Come on.
Yeah, so
That's not equal rights. That's I remember if we took on someone that wasn't immunised and there was an outbreak of,
they'd have to isolate.
They'd have to isolate,
Yeah.
and the parents were fine with that.
And for a while there's also like you could get a waiver and what have you. But so I'm guessing maybe it's only for those centres that do get government assistance that have to abide by that. So if you're a centre that is a private preschool that don't do Centrelink, then they might have different rules. So just be mindful of that as well. And then generally what you'll find is that most centres will do an orientation day like we used to do, so that you can come along. You spend that time with your child. So be mindful with orientation days or visits and things like that, because your child, if they're not when I say officially enrolled and this is happening before their start date, the parents do have to stay with their child, because legally that child's not just allowed to be left there without being fully enrolled. So we'd quite often ask the parents just to come for an hour or so, let them have a play. We try and get the parent just to sit off to the side so the child can play and come back
and watch them interact, and and you get a feel too as a parent. You get a feel of the place, and
it's a really good time for you to get to know the other get to know the educators, the director, and even as if there's a lead educator in your child's room, what we would try and do at our centre, obviously that lead educator would try and sit down and have that conversation with the parent. Because don't get me wrong, we all have sometimes those get to know me forms, but it's really nice to have those personal conversations with parents as well, because you might get a bit more information out of them that it's not on a ticker box form.
I know, it's very hard sometimes to write down your words of your everything that you want to say.
And so generally again a lot of centres will give you a get to know me form, especially if you've got a bubba starting. You want to know all their sleep, centres will need to know their sleep routines, their dietary requirements, anything that they need to know, do they settle with a dummy or do they settle, a certain way, and all those things. And also just for parents with babies, just be mindful that all the childcare centres really have to abide by safe sleeping policies. So I know a lot of people have got, those little Raffy toys and things like that that they like their child to sleep with, but you've also got to be mindful that we, really do have to abide by other regulations and stuff like that. So just that's even even before you actually start on that first day, make sure you label, that's right, their clothes everything,
and bags, and exactly right. Drink bottles if they've got the little young bubbers that are going. So
and sometimes, and most centres will give you a list of what to take. So there's some centres that will have drink trolleys, so that you bring your own drink bottle and
everything.
And what have you. So I think as a rule of thumb, when your child's starting, just a change of clothes. If they are toilet training, obviously you'll need to supply some more, but also be mindful of the weather. So even pack, a long sleeve shirt or a cardigan around those weather changes, and short sleeve shirts. The other thing too is to remember is about the SunSmart policies that most centres have to abide by. Right. So we have a lot of parents that would bring their daughters or their like sons in singlet tops or singlet dresses.
Yes.
And
make sure their shoulders are covered.
The shoulders have to be covered, and so you might find that, you know, in some photos that a staff member has put a T-shirt over your child because legally, like, you know, that's part of our policies is that children have to be protected, and that with those sun standards.
But I think initially too, just as when the children do start, I think they should be able to do this. And I remember we used to have a few parents questioning that if they do come early to pick up their children for the first week, are they going to be charged the full fee and so forth? But as a parent, this is something you should be slowly transitioning your child. You give them short days, you know, half days, maybe just after morning tea or maybe just after lunch and then after sleep, doing it slowly to give them that reassurance that you're going to come back to pick them up.
And would always like try to encourage that. And I understand that some families, that's their first day of work, so you know they have to go back to work, and that's it. And so if that's the case for you, like most centres should be happy to take as many phone calls throughout the day as possible. But just be mindful that if you can do a shorter day for the first week, it makes a massive difference.
Huge.
Yeah. Massive difference.
Just gives that child a bit more confidence and reassurance that, you know, mum said they're coming early, mum's coming, and you give that specific time of when you're coming.
Yeah.
So after you finish having some fruit, I'll be there. Or after you finish having a sleep, I'll be there, you know.
And never sneak out. Like that's probably the biggest thing. If you sneak out, they will look for you all day. It might make you feel better, but trust me,
remember how many times parents were like, I'm going to sneak off now. And we're like,
no, you're not. No, you're not. Or I've had parents who have done that and I've turned around and go, where'd they go? And they go, oh, they've left. And then next minute the child's screaming at me, like thinking that I've like thinking, and then going to like, I remember going to the door and they're constantly looking for them at that door and they'd be like, no, they're not there. And
I remember. Yeah. I remember we had to come hard down on the parents, like, listen, it's not about you, it's about the child right now.
Yeah.
You know, make sure you say goodbye and I'm coming back to pick you up.
That's
right. Those few words, those last words they hang on to.
That's right. And I'll be back, and like you said before, it's really good to be specific. I'll be back after you've eaten. Yeah. I'll be back after your sleep. And
or even I'll be back after you have a little play outside if they know that's what's going to happen in the afternoon or as such, you know. Or Another important factor is, and I think you spoke about this, is meet the educators. It's so important that you have a little chat with them because they're the ones that will be nurturing and looking after your child. So, you know, introduce yourself, make yourself known to them, you know, get to know who they are and the director as such. So be part of the family unit that's there because it's important that you're leaving your child there.
Well, and most childcare centres, that's a massive like part of, you know, the curriculum as well is like the belonging and being belonging.
Yes.
That, you know, you really want to welcome those families in, and it just makes it easier for everybody because as an educator they feel like that they can come to you as well and say, you know what, this is how they went today, you know, maybe we might need to do this, maybe, you know, so therefore you already make those connections and that relationship and stuff. And therefore you can also be mindful that when you fill out your enrolment forms, like you need to also sometimes have some people who are like authorities to collect.
Yes.
So, just also like be mindful that of who you're going to put down, who can you call on if they can't get hold of you, like someone that is able to be contacted, that you feel comfortable
to pick up.
or even make a decision about your child type thing. Yeah. So,
I mean, another way that because we briefly touched on separation anxiety for children. I mean, that's a huge thing for young children. It's a big step for them. You know, going to a place where initially they don't know anyone and they don't know the environment and they don't know, you know, the tables, the chairs, the toys, you know.
Well, you know yourself if you're going into even a workplace for the first time, like how anxious.
Overwhelming it is, yes. So, but and I know especially for first-time parents, but like I said, every child's different and, you know, I mean, you've got some children say, see you, bye, and happy to go. You've got some children that are just in tears and pulling at you and you've got parents. The main thing that I say is don't cry in front of your child.
Well, try not to cry.
Try not to cry.
I remember having a parent as a father. Do you remember that?
Which one?
Yeah, back many years ago at Trendy Tots, and like the father had the tissue and he was wiping the child's face, the son's face, and then he was wiping his own tears and then wiping his child's. And we're like, okay, I think it's time for you to go. And we've got this.
I remember another mother doing that. It was like something from the Titanic. It was just, it wasn't, I shouldn't say ridiculous because, like, I mean,
those real emotions,
their real emotions were like, but like you just can't do that because that's not giving the child the confidence and reassurance that it's going to be left there for 6 hours or whatever. So keep those tears for the car.
Yeah, get in there and lose it. And, but, while you're in there, you're like, no, this is good.
Yeah.
You're going to have so much fun. And, actually, I read an article the other day in regards to, like, preparing your child type thing.
Yep.
So, and there were some really, really good books as well that sort of kind of spoke about like separation anxiety and stuff like that as well. So, like, there was a few that, even if you read them overnight time, like with your child about, before they start.
Oh, look, there's lots of resources out there that, especially for the first-time parents who are doing, this journey of going into childcare, reading up, there's a lot of information out there to help to assist you with the whole transitioning and also your child.
Yeah.
And you probably come across that when you start searching for a childcare centre in your area as such, and often the childcare centres have a little bit of information too.
Yeah, and they will generally, like we always had that in our little starter pack as well.
Yeah.
So, but that's right, there was one really good book that was called Llama Llama Mrs. Mama. And so again, it goes through, like about it's okay to miss me. And that's the whole thing, is that it's okay for these children.
Who's the author of that one?
Anne, what is it? I think it was Anne.
I haven't heard that book.
And Judy.
How are we spelling that? How are you spelling that?
Dewdney. Judney.
Okay. And Judney.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. What's it called?
Llama Llama Mrs. Mama.
Llama Llama Mrs. Mama. I love the title. I haven't heard of that one. But look, just books like that gives a bit of a rundown of how to help your child with transitioning.
And just about like missing and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it becomes quite overwhelming for the whole family unit because sometimes too, you find yourself you're in a hurry in the mornings, but if you keep your routines consistent and positive, and I mean, sometimes with the preschool age kids, you can give them something in their bags as a comfort item from home.
Yeah.
I remember a little girl used to have a little photo of her mum, just in her bag, just sitting there. So when she was feeling a bit sad, she'd go and have a look at the photo. Some children have some toys. I know most childcare centres don't like kids bringing their own toys in and mixing it with the other toys, but having that toy in their bag is something from home so they connect with.
I had a parent once that the little boy brought in his dad's boxer shorts. Because they liked the silkiness, and he'd lie there on his bed and put it on his face. And I remember going, "Oh, what's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a bit awkward." Like, thanks for that.
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Well, that's right. Whatever it takes, I guess that's what we do, don't we?
Oh my goodness! But reassuring that you come back is the biggest thing for your child. And that's they've got to hold on to that all day, especially if they're not coping with that separation from you.
Yeah. And even like we used to ask the parents, like, what's their favourite thing to do? Like, what do they like? What do, and at my last centre, we were very lucky that we had chickens and like a horses and ducks and what have you. So I don't know, there were so many times I just spent the whole day outside because that seemed to soothe them. And then,
But maybe they don't feel like they're trapped inside the kingdom. And it's a bit more free.
Yeah, and it was just like, I remember that just be something that they'd be happy with. And sometimes too, you've got to be mindful that your child might be okay, but if there's another new child that's just started and they're crying, it might then, you know what I mean? So
it's a chain reaction.
Yeah, it only takes one. One that goes, I want my mum or I want my dad, and it's they're like, oh, hang on, chick, I forgot about that.
Remember that little boy we had? What was he? He had an accent, an English accent. I want my mum.
Oh, Ben.
Yes.
His name was Ben. I do remember him. I want my mum. I want my nan. He wanted his nan, remember?
Want my nan. Yeah. Oh, that was just so adorable. But I know. And he was so heartbroken. But, again, too, with a bit of, that nurturing that which educators do an amazing job with. It's all children need. They need to feel that reassurance that someone's there going to look after them and on their side of saying, mum's going to come. She will be here soon.
Yeah, and that's okay. There's a big thing about, validating children's feelings as well. Not like, okay, that's enough. You don't,
no.
like blah, 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 and that, whereas, like just going, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay because your mum or your dad, who's picking you up today? Quite often I'd say that to them, who's picking you up today?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, Mum. I go, that's right, she's coming very soon. So let's go and have fun. Let's get a tissue. Like quite often I'd take them over to get a tissue, help them wipe their tears, because it's almost like that I'm wiping them away and letting them wipe them away, and I'm okay.
Yes, you're acknowledging their emotion, which is great, so they know that you're on their side.
That's right.
But I'm sure all these first time children will have amazing time at their kindy, and by the time you know it, but they'll be turning 5 and off to school, and that'll be another transition.
Yeah, well, that's true too. And the other thing too, actually, just quickly, be mindful at 3 o'clock, 3:30, when some of the parents start coming in. Your child could have been fine all day. As soon as they start seeing some of those parents, they actually then might start crying. And then even for, like, I don't know, remember sometimes they might cry initially, or they might be fine for a week or two, and it's the third week or fourth week.
Yeah, we'll say the honeymoon's over.
Yeah.
And then it's like reality sets in, and hang on a second.
Yeah, because a few times parents have gone, oh, well, hang on a tick, they were fine. What did you do? What did you do to my child?
It's just the process that they go through.
And I think sometimes they're like, I've come, I've played, I've done a painting, I've done this, I've done that. I've ticked all my boxes. Why am I coming back again?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they might even realise that, mum's at home with, another child, or, the school-age children aren't back at school and things like that. So
I think by that time that's when the hard work comes in for educators.
Yeah.
Initially it's all wonderful and roses and it's all happy and joyful. Then all of a sudden you see in 3 weeks there's a bit of a dive, and educators are like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's when it becomes hard, because sometimes it's those ones that were initially crying are starting to settle, and then all of a sudden you've got this one that has been happy that then loses it, and you're like, what? I thought you liked us. What's going on?
Yeah. So hopefully by then the educators have got on board of each child's interests and how they can divert them and distract them.
Yeah.
If they have parents coming in, picking other children up, they think, okay, Mrs. Jones is coming to pick up Johnny, let's distract.
Yeah, or we might need to move these children, I know in our baby's room at my last centre, we have like all glass doors that overlooked the veranda, and that's where the parents would come in.
Yeah.
But as soon as those gates would open, like the babies would be at the door, like at this glass door crying, which is not a good look. Like they've actually been fine, but these poor little bubbers would be there, and the parents are like, oh my gosh, have they been crying all day? And we're like, no, I promise you they haven't. And that's we had to actually almost half frost the glass or put some craft on there and things like that, just to try and block their view of these parents coming in of an afternoon, and that. So just be mindful that sometimes things do happen that that they start crying or getting upset, and it's not that anything actually has happened as well. So, and just try and keep it positive, lots of conversations with your child about how their day's been. If you find that your child's really anxious leading up to like the Monday night before, because sometimes depends on what days they come, parents would quite often say, is it better to do consecutive days, or is it better to have them split apart? So sometimes that would just depend on the child.
On the child, I know. It's very hard to say. Like sometimes it's depending on what the child's week's like. If the child's doing swimming lessons or they're doing other dancing during the day, or they're doing other activities, then you would probably stagger it out during the week. But if you feel like they're having just continuous learning time, and interaction time, so you might want to do like you said. It depends.
I don't think there's a rule of thumb that makes one better than the other. Like some people do like to do consecutive days; they just feel that works better for them. But like I think I've said before, just be mindful if you do consecutive days and your child gets sick on that first day, they can't come back the next day. Like they've got to be, clear of temperatures and fevers and stuff for 24 hours. So sometimes having a break in between can help them as well. So
so very important when you fill out that 10,000 page enrolment form, you look at each section carefully and sign it, because it's so important, because like you were just saying about someone being sick. On the flip side, if it was your child that was great and well and someone else came in sick, so all those things are important, and abide by the policies of where your child attends. So
and be mindful too that when children do start childcare, they do get sick, and that and it's not the centre's fault, because we don't invent the virus in the
Viruses.
centre, someone has brought that in. So, it could be your child could have brought it in this time, or another child. So,
and there's no blame. There's no blame on anybody. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And we just have to all respect one another and follow through,
Yeah. So there's lots of lots of little tips and things like that. But at the end of the day, like lots of cuddles, and for both yourself, I think, and your child.
When you get in the car, or you get
and then
home.
sometimes it's not a bad thing. You get in the car, and you go, you know what, I'm going for a coffee, or I'm going for a walk, or whatever. If you can, if you're able to.
And if it's your last child going to childcare, you might be going, yeehaw.
Yeah, or that's right. Or it could also be like, oh no, like that's like my last baby. But regardless, hang in there, and like most children do settle down and really, really enjoy the experience as well. Biggest thing, communicate with your centre, ask them what app they're using, get on all those sort of kind of platforms to keep informed, and that will be the easiest road for you as well, I think. So,
Yeah. So before we go, I'm going to leave you with this Dr. Zeus quote. You're off to great places. Today is your day. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. Enjoy, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.